again or share it with friends who couldn't be here tonight. This evening got started, really came into existence several years ago when 4 women poets met at the Table Rock Writers Workshop in the North Carolina mountains, taught by Mr. Joseph Bethanti, who was then the state's poet laureate. We want to thank Mr. Bethanti for getting them together and for helping to create this evening by sowing those seeds. And we also would want to thank Georgianne Eubanks and Donna Campbell of Table Rock Writers Workshop for the wonderful work that they do. The poets are going to read in a round robin fashion without a pause. So I want to introduce all of them to you now. All 4 have been recognized for their achievements and have been published widely in journals, online, and in anthologies. All 4 show their generous hearts by giving back to their communities as artists and as citizens. Dee Stribling is one of our poets. Dee is a poet focusing on culture and landscape. Her poets are tributes to friends and places embodying the strength, struggle, and beauty of rural and small town settings. Dee has been published in Finishing Line Press and Horse and Buggy Press. You can learn more about Dee and read more poetry at deestribling.com. Laurie Wilcox-Meyer is our second poet. Laurie's latest collection, Conversation in the Key of Blue, was published by Main Street Rag Publishing in 2020. She lives in the mountains of Western North Carolina. She is co-founder of Poetry Pathways, a project intended to celebrate poetry and make poetry accessible along Asheville City greenways. Sue Weaver Dunlap lives deep in the Southern Appalachian Mountains.
I don't know that.
Near Wayland, Tennessee, where she and her husband Raymond live and work a mountain farm. There, among the bear, turkey, deer, and pets, she writes poetry, fiction, and memoir. Her books are published by Main Street Rag. And Sue, your next book will be published by Iris Press, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And Kimberlyn Blum-Hyclak is our 4th poet. Kim's inspiration comes from small town living, the people and beauty of nature around her. Kim's first poetry collection, In the Garden of Life and Death, A Mother and Daughter's Walk, was published by Main Street Rag. Sue, I think you have a few words to say before the readings begin.
Yes, and we are going to do this in round robin. We did this format in North Carolina last year and absolutely loved us. But as Nora said, in 2012, the 4 of us came together. Dee and I knew each other previously from Table Rock, but we all kind of converged at Table Rock and took Joseph by storm. Some days, I don't know what he did with us, but he inspired us so much. But what was born in that room over those few days became a sisterhood that crosses time, crosses place. We are in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee, and we retreat usually at least once a year where we write. But we are bound, and I think through the poems you will see that we share such a wonderful kindred spirit. So sit back and enjoy.
Thank you for those great introductions. So I believe I am leading round 1 off. I'm going to be reading a poem that's called Roads. Ask of my dream, and I'll tell you a lie, until I go there and meet the people and watch their horizon appear over farms, rivers, mountains, and snow, until I hear the wind screaming through Ida Mae's holler and howling across Short's field as it picks up packs of sounds from coyotes, bobcats, owls, until the yellow sun blazes into cinders of night with white moonlit clouds showing the way across fields full of pricked ears, waiting for the tiniest rustle of grasses. Yes, ask me of my dream, until I can tell you with all my being that my heart found temporary lodging there, and spirit, earth, and sky were comfortable and welcoming.
Like poppies, when you say French poppies, silk, red lips, a bluebird flickers and shakes pollen out from black dahlias. Green trees, umbrella gray rains, cooling tears, and your wings budding my hidden heart. Speed of light at its own pace, too slow. A star field glows everywhere in us. The radio turned on by itself, but already we were here, now, at play, melting the first shot in any war.
Okay, this is from my collection, A Groovy Kind of Love. J9 on the teen room jukebox, the only song you'll play over and over, oblivious to the audience of doctors and nurses gathered in silence at the door. Phil Collins lulls you into your own ballet. Your stage is not this hospital wing, where lumbar punctures probe and low blood counts restrict, yet you remain tethered. The IV pole holds the drip, but it's the music that courses through your body, challenging with aerobics and pirouettes, the chemo that ravages. Arms raised in offering, your spirit will not be harnessed. In graceful acceptance, you bow to the stainless steel, your partner in this dance.
Appalachia old. I come from old mountains, carry me, love me. I come from old water, springs, settle me, rinse me. I come from old kin, stories gird me, mark me. I come from old shape notes, soothe me, promise me. I come from old dirt patches, grow me, warm me. I come from old hardwoods, brace me, root me. I come from old.
So we're going to start round 2. And I'm going to read a poem called John Short. And it's in memory and honor of an old carpenter who taught me how to do chewing tobacco, sort of. John Short. John Short comes back to me in dreams. His big, rough hands stoked coal fires for moonshine days and drunken nights. He used to say, "Sweet pea, them crows sure are talking this morning." Sleek, black featherbacks catching the sun, sharing words spoken in croaks and whistles. They perch, 4 of them, talking away. They might as well have spectacles and cigars. Something moves at a distance, perhaps a hawk. 4 piercing stares as wind sends sweet gumballs to the ground. They turn on their branches and watch the sky, stopping conversation for just this moment. Then, with great fluffing of feathers, they resume their visit and crow stories. Small pleasures or hard times. John and I would watch together. His suspenders frayed, collarless shirt stained with rivulets of tobacco juice, broken down boots, still standing.
Home. The astrophysicist praises the point of light photo of Earth as seen between the icy rings of Saturn. The way she sings, I throw my worry rock away. It would have disappeared anyway from too much thumbing. Back toward the ground it goes like a meteorite. Why do I even think I can halt the spin of what is? Most all of the cosmos is darkness, as well as most all of our existence these days. See the supreme gaze of Narcissus, rusting land, oceans, air. Will the sun burn on for 1 billion more years? I make believe it is true, to believe in forever. My crater transfigures into wine.
This one's not from my book. Voyeurs. We slip into your room like shadows that creep under a closed door, my partner and I. We empty wastebaskets, overflowing with scraps of itineraries, a donut box, a sales receipt from the Pagoda gift shop, a park map and schedule, times circled and checked off like a sundial marking the hours. We dust around your souvenirs, the family tintype, enshrined by hand-dipped tapers, offerings of seashells, a collection of postcards, the standard hotel double dresser becoming your family altar. We find condoms left behind in the bathroom, shed and discarded like the transparent snake's skins, swirling water in the bathtub, a man-made current redepositing sand, washed from hand, hair, rinsed out of swimsuits. Then slip out with full trash bags and laundry carts, taking nothing more than you leave us, but you leave us more than you think.
Oh, coy girls, answer the call. Feel blind hurt seek its way where river channels lie deep, memory lined. Grief stands like rock face gorges. My raft spins, caught in this foamy maelstrom. I stand alone along the ancient Ocoy. My eyes seek familiar mountaintops, the wooden flume line that carries our family tears, an occasional spillway from rotted boards. What we know of shattered years we hope to drown. Our only hope of rescue lies in fingers lacing fingers, my palms warming yours, our last days of mountain girls.
Round 3. The title of this poem is Julian, the Place. Don't struggle with the darkness. Give your eyes time to adjust. Smell the sweetness, taste wood soaked in sweat, dirt deep brown from tobacco juice. Look up. Those curing sticks hang empty now. Cantaloupes grow over there. Hot mica sandy soil glistens. Hold the warmth in your hands, rough and round. Go back up that dusty road. Grandpa on the porch, leather for skin, no smile, gnarled hand stuck just behind his overall bib. Grandma's dress, full of pretty dancing flowers, blue, red, and green on yellow. Pull the feathers of the rooster that walks under the plank floor underneath your bed. Hear his hens taking dust baths under the kitchen that leans to like I lean to, pulled in, taken completely in. This home, this wood stove with pots and skillets, 10 pans on the wall for washing, and an ice box with no ice. You're still here in the shadows. You're still part of this. We are too. Us with your uncles, rough but kind blue eyes. Your mama with cancer, not treated, but she still turns out chocolate pies and brings them to us after priming tobacco, which makes me feel sick, but I do it anyway because you're here, or because you were here, because you will always be here in this old house, off this dirt road, 3 miles inside my heart.
Dear gray whale, I'm stranded on the shoreline of no poetry. Words blare while a siren sings silence, and a koan grins. Within white noise, the moon and its tides are too rich, too dreamy. Earth of gravity groans in my tectonic plate of bones, turns me into a lava lake that boils and spews electric blue that begs for more blistering heat. Oh, gray whale, as you strain krill, swallow me so that I may dwell inside. Please silence those parts of me not in waters of your spacious body. I crave your headlong dive more than illusion falsely shepherds. Flames of bored desires create games too long on a divided field. I'm ready to rise. Majestic grace, at the least, smooth what is rough inside the magma of me, or simply digest me. Most sincerely yours.
Beans. I wake to the raining of dry pintos into a coffee tin. A 1 pound can, the right size for a 1 pound bag of beans. Folgers and 8 o'clock line across and way down the heart of pine cupboards. Every payday, Dad wants to know why the hell she buys so much damn coffee. Why such a damned waste of his hard-earned paycheck? I listen for the rattle of dry beans in coffee tins. Take comfort knowing there will be supper when the grocery money is gambled and drunk to the very last drop.
This poem is entitled Spirit Place, and the epigraph is from Jim Wayne Miller, outstanding, beautiful person from Western Kentucky University. He's been gone from us for a while, but he was probably the most influential Appalachian poet around. You Must Be Born Again by Jim Wayne Miller, Briar Sermon. Spirit Place. Here at the Spirit Place, a street preacher stands, a short, stout man, his weather blue suit threadbare, shiny, his white shirt open at the neck, a wide striped tie speckled with leftover breakfast jam and held fast mid-girth with a tarnished gold tie clasp. I've known him all my life, this street corner preacher man named Papa Weaver, a knife-trading, storytelling man, until Saturday morning at this corner of Market and Union, a call to preach. His open face, black Bible drapes his left hand. His right hand extends to heaven, shouts for revival and for born-again Christians to match his fervent pace. His one small patch of concrete, congregation hell-bent to escape his song of sin and redemption. This scene finds its toehold. Cover my grave with this rooted inheritance. I must be born again.
So I'm going to lead off round 4 with a poem called Her Room. She stands with life fractured into little pieces about her feet, shattered on wide plank pine floor, shards salted into cracks, will wait months and years to cut bare feet. Silence exploded when it dropped, as if a boulder had come down off a mountain, or a dead tree gave way in wind. The common finality of falling. She looks about the empty room, no chair by the window, no curtains rustle in the breeze, not even a fly buzzing. White emptiness holds her, caught. If there were a broom, she could sweep broken pieces under a rug. If there were a rug, she could walk softly across the room. If there were a room, she could find a chair, perhaps by a window. If there were a window, she could open it. If there were curtains, they would rustle in the breeze. If there were an iris, it would bloom.
Show me a couple who doesn't speak in words but motions a spoon to red lips as their eyes lock open for love in the river of ever, while hands on oars make for silence in song, and the lilt of no language is oneness where dementia dissolves, and any disease becomes beauty exponential in the not too late to fall to your knees for the green in the trees, in the grass, in the glow.
Easter, 1936. He smiles from the old black and white. Sleeves of the jacket cover his thumbs. Seams and cuffs worn to shine. Their fourth son after twin daughters, born in the year the stock market died. The family gave up the newly built city house, returned to the family homestead, where he picked lilies of the valley from the garden fence, the stems bunched and bruised in the chipped jelly jar, to grace his grandma's table. Knew the woods and grandpa's barn, where he stole naps with the hound and her puppies. He was 7 when the rusty nail hit its mark and the barefoot ways of boys back then, before shots could stop the red line's travel and doctors were more than minutes away. Buried beneath the scarlet maple, its crimson leaves blanket a tiny hollow, his favorite hide-and-seek refuge. On the mantelpiece, the frames black and white, their only picture of him taken the year it was his turn to wear the Easter suit.
This next poem is the title poem from the new collection forthcoming from Iris Press. Night walk to our spring house. I gathered courage and kindle my purpose to fetch sweet milk. Dim end of day melted away, flickering fireflies just out, shadows of tree limbs against orange gloaming of sunset west. At spring's edge, salamanders skidded into a chill late summer spring, the flare of my light ebbing and flowing, floor stones slick with beaded sheen of sweet water. Inside the stacked stone house, troughed nectar guised in white luxury held my aim steady, strong, the gutter swell dark. Up the path at the house, Mommy's fried cabbage and cornbread waited me. Purple beets glistened in a white porcelain bowl alongside pole beans and new potatoes rendered with salt bacon. Sweet memories of home on my tongue. Corn fresh from the cob. Food to fill our red oak table. Center me within these walls. And as I turn with milk in hand, grandmother touches my elbow. Whispers, stand tall, use all gifts placed in your hands. I leave the spring house. The moon now lightens my way back to a home of bounty on shelves of toil and gratitude. Grandmother's fingers long since journeyed away. Memories raised like braille read like words in my book, where spring's flow persists in memory, marking my way, encouragement to unearth gratitude this day when love springs. So as I said, as we started our segment of round robin reading, the four of us, it clicked. And I'm sure there were times we drove Joseph crazy, but we clicked on many levels. We clicked first as women, and we clicked as women of faith. We clicked as women who were creative. We clicked as women who were willing to share a part of us, the intimacy that comes from many, many years of friendship. And for some reason, we were gifted this that week that we were at Table Rock. And as time went on, we decided that we needed to be together. We needed to be beyond the internet. We needed to be beyond anything. We needed to get together, and we needed to write, and we needed to talk, and we needed to love, and we needed to hug, and we needed to cry, and we needed to share our lives with this intimacy that we knew as women. And so we started meeting, and eventually we've ended up at a cabin in Western Carolina near Boone. And it's usually in the spring, and we're ready to welcome spring. And we write hard, and each of us brings prompts to the table, and we go to a wonderful breakfast, and then we write, and then we visit, and we walk, and we write, and we edit, and we write some more. And so on this particular prompt, we want to share with you what happens, that organic chemistry that comes from four women together with purpose in a cabin in North Carolina. And so this particular prompt comes from Laurie, and at the time her granddaughter was 3, and there's a description of her eyes. Her eyes were so dark and that you could fall to sleep in them. And so we were to write a poem in the perspective of a 3-year-old, or even a younger toddler, a baby. And we were exploring this notion of sleep, and where do we go? Where do we go is in this sleep-like state. And so when we shared these poems the first time in North Carolina last year, they were handwritten. I mean, we had just finished this, and we went to a reading, and there we were, and we poured our hearts out on the page. And so this particular round is going to be started with Dee reading what came from this prompt.
Well, as usual, being one of the kids inside, I wrote 3 short poems instead of 1. I didn't listen to Sue, the teacher, who keeps me in line usually. We all do that. So, Night Magic, there are 3 parts. 1, Dark Dragon. I see you come to play with me. The rest are shy, they wait to be. I slide from bed onto your back. We fly through open window into darkness and stars. 2, Red. Mars is red, my papa says. He says to look to sky and find Mars glow. But he don't know that I remember red dust and family left behind so very long ago. 3, Yellow poppies. I watch flowers frost at night, moonlit ice, smooth delight, petals formed by fairy dreams, sparkle and bow to prince's might, before magic vanishes with dawn's first light.
So the prompt did come from Ava, my granddaughter, and she said at 3. Your eyes are dark, like the darkness we sleep in. The title of this poem is One. I taste your eyes, dark, like the darkness we sleep in, wade in, drift in, falling deep in, something like, yet so unlike, that the swirl in my head sails no brain, no mind, but more the dream of your hand in my hand is the only way into this river of love.
Okay, and then there's some of us that when they do the prompt, it just sort of, part of it goes over their head. The first part when Laurie says, speak in the voice of a 3-year-old. I had a 3-year-old grandson, and so I immediately thought of him, and the whole idea of sleep sort of I missed. But these are 3 little poems, and in the revisions, sleep sort of came in. So Eli at 3. 1. Abracadabra. See, I make the water go up to the sky. Fountain sprays rise, dance, flash, reflect his movements, and Eli believes. Now I will tell it to stop, and it all falls down. Shh, the fountain is going to sleep. 2. This is my green trash truck. You can play with the car. He lies on the floor, shrinks to fit, or maybe in daydreams, trucks and cars expand. He slips inside, lost in his world of vroom. 3. Sing the church song. At bedtime, we rock away his resistance to sleep. I sing, open my eyes, Lord. The second time, Eli sings along, catching important words. See, heart, love. Let's sing it again, just one more time. Open my eyes, Lord. Okay, now we sing it again, just 2 more times. Just 2 more times, okay?
And so then you have me who immediately thinks about a 3-year-old going to a really dark place. And so the title of this poem is Hold Fast This Grave. Musty dirt climbs the misshapen wood basement steps, creeps under the heavy oak door, cracked wide enough to let fear slip in unnoticed. I run to Mama, hold fast to her skirt tail, hide against her leg, seek courage. Mama can't smell the dark. Light from a single bulb enough to guide her down, hand sure to find a switch that illuminates this grave beneath our house. A massive coal stoker furnace towers in corner shadows. Coal heaped high glistens nearby. Outdoor light a sliver. Behind solid steps, rows of canned beans and peaches rest in cool repose. My 3-year-old self falls to aloneness. And so that's what we do. And we love, and we write, and we edit. And so now we're going to switch over for a little while, and Nora's going to field some questions.
Yes, I'll be happy to take questions. I see that some people have identified where they're from tonight. We have someone with us from Florida and from Kentucky and Tennessee. So some of the rest of you, if you are not local to Hillsborough, Chapel Hill, Carrboro, or Durham, let us know where you're coming in from so we can get a sense of what the range is here tonight. And please ask questions. I'm looking for some questions. And I've got one to start with. This is on behalf of a friend of mine named Shirley. Her question for the poets was, her original question was, do you remember the first time a poem made you cry? And I'll expand that a little bit to say, do you remember the first time a poem or a poet made you cry? And then, is there a poem or a poet you can count on to make you cry? And I want all four of you to answer that.
Well, I'll start. And this happened when we were practicing and then in group. But when Dee started off with the very first poem, I'm already crying. With the beauty of the words and the meaning. For me, a lot of what I can remember about that first poet was Jim Wayne Miller. And when I was reading the Briar Sermon, and this man was my people. I mean, he knew me. It was as though he reached into my heart and he knew exactly how I felt about my mountains. And a lot of times when I'm going somewhere for retreat, I take his book with me. It's well worn. And he speaks to me in many ways. And my poet sisters always bring something up in my heart, the beauty that they share. Next.
I'll go next. I grew up in Louisiana and happened to be in a town that had a college where my father worked. And it happened to be a really good arts and humanities college. They would bring people like Buckminster Fuller and just all sorts of people, which was, you know, pretty incredible for Louisiana. And so in grade school, I can't exactly remember the year, but grade school or middle school, they had Gwendolyn Brooks down from Chicago. She's a Pulitzer Prize winning African-American, the first African-American woman poet to win the Pulitzer. And her poem, To Be in Love, is, you know, it got me. And the way she spoke and the richness, you just can't even describe it. But anyway, that's what I have to say about that.
A couple, I think, and this is a nod to Joseph. The first time I heard Joseph was at the CPC, or Central Piedmont Community College Literary Festival, and in Charlotte. And Irene Blair Honeycutt would bring in all of these different people. So we were exposed to different poets and writers. And that was the first time I heard Joseph. And he's from Pennsylvania, the you know, steel worker, that kind of thing. And I'm from Ohio and Catholic like he is. And so there were a lot of poems that he was reciting that connected to me at different places. Another poet that came to CPCC, the Literary Festival, years later was Lee Young Lee, who is from Jakarta. And he just, his voice, and that's where some of that crying came in, because it was such lovely words, but also just the way he delivered. And Wendell Berry is one that I go to all of the time. Wendell Berry and Mary Oliver. I listen to them and it touches me, and I just want to go out and dig in the dirt, because they make me feel that connection to nature and something very, very organic. And so those are some of my go-tos.
I'm not sure I can remember the first time a poet or a poem made me cry. I do have a very vivid memory of Maya Angelou, the first time I heard her read poetry in person many years ago, and the power and strength and the fact that she really took my bones and pulled them outside of me and scattered them, and I looked at them. I mean, just incredible force and beautiful writing. The last 2 times I cried hearing poetry, I have had the honor and gift, really the gift, of helping out at the library in poetry in Hillsborough. And over the past year and a half, I have heard new voices speak their hearts and soul through poems. And they really just bring me to tears. I'm talking about a 10-year-old little girl or a 16-year-old transgender young man or person. And it just, the sheer honesty of that is amazing. And the other time I cry again, thanks to Joseph and his amazing work with military veterans. I'm of the Vietnam years, and hearing Joseph's poets, men who brought me to tears, and I'm sure everyone else. And then outside, totally teased me and made me laugh. So poetry opens doors to amazing people and just amazing spirit. Long-winded answer, but those are the times.
Hey, those answers are making me cry. Thank you all. By the way, Ohio is with us. I see for sure we have Ohio with us. And here's a great question, I think. Maybe 2 of you will volunteer to answer. Have you been writing during this sheltering time? And I'm gonna, again, just add a little bit to that. Is your writing changing during this sheltering time, if you are writing? Dee, I'm calling on you.
I'll start and count on my poet sisters to come in. I have been writing. I've been writing lots of blog posts, which for some reason come easily. I have not been writing poetry. However, as when I go to New Mexico and go out there every chance I can for the past 25, 30 years, I don't write there, but I store it up. And I can feel myself storing up different shapes, forms, words, sounds, combinations of things. And it's not coming out yet, but it will. So that's kind of how it works for me.
Well, I'm writing haiku right now. The sheltering time has been, for me, a time of grief because of loss, personal loss last year. It was tremendous for me. And then recovery from surgery at the end of February. And so it's been a swirl. And like Dee said, all these things that I live on a 100-acre mountain farm in Wallen, Tennessee. And so I'm surrounded by it all the beautiful gifts that you can have in the quiet and the loveliness of it all. And so things are being stored, images and all my senses are working in overdrive. And what has happened is haiku. And as a poet, haiku, and as a wordy person, former English teacher, it's been great for me to reach into my observations there at the farm. And they are, holler haiku and front porch haiku and bear haiku, but haiku is what's speaking to me, the brevity with intensity right now.
I should have said, and I'd like to say, that excellent question was from Joan Barasovska. Thank you for that, Joan. And Roberta Schultz has a question. And Sue, this may be mostly for you again. Have you gone to Hindman to read the Breyer sermon?
I've been at Hyman, and while you're at Hyman, you do the Breyer sermon. And the chorus And this Zoom is wonderful, and I love it. And I love the opportunity to meet and to feel, but to be at Hyman and to do the Briar sermon in chorus is amazing. And if you're not familiar with the Briar sermon and Jim Wayne Miller, please check that out. Hi, Roberta. Another amazing poet, by the way, and musician.
Yes, she is. Linda Riggins, to everyone, is it important to memorize your poetry? Is there a difference in poetry? Sorry, I've got a little message here that's covering that up. I'll leave it at that. Is it important to memorize your poetry? For each of you to answer, please.
I like to memorize other poets' poetry personally, so I don't memorize my own.
I'm too old to memorize. And when I was young, I also sing, and choral instructors and voice teachers, you know, they get on to you wanting you to memorize all this stuff. And I'm going, I have set the multiplication tables. Why should I learn them? I got a, you know, a way to do it. So, but you do, after you've read them for a while, you begin to pick up the cadence. And obviously we all read aloud a lot, but I like to have, I'm tactile, and I want it in front of me. But like Laurie said, I do memorize other poets.
I can't, I memorize a little bit of my own, but not to say I know the whole poem by itself, and just, no.
I am way too shy to memorize anything. I am in absolute awe of people who can stand up at poetry slams and amazingly, beautifully, powerfully recite their poems. And I wish I could do that. I'm sure a gnat has more memory capacity than I do. It terrifies me if I don't have this in my hands. Not to say I don't move around and express, but ask me to memorize something and it's I'm
going to ask, you have to memorize Barracuda.
I probably could do that one.
It would be fabulous.
The next question could be a good follow-up to what Dee just said. What kind of feeling did you experience when you read your first poem?
Oh dear. I'll go. Let me go. I'm an introvert. Okay. Nobody believes that, but I am. And so I almost threw up the first time I read a poem in public. Appalachian Writers Association, 1990s. Kay Heck, you were there, you know, Kay's in the audience. And I'm like, Dee, I've got to have it, but I am an introvert who has to work in an extrovert world. And I thought I was going to throw up.
I was trying to think when the first time I read in public. And for those of you in North Carolina, you've probably heard of Kathy Smith Bowers, who was a poet laureate for 2 years. She's actually from where I live. Her hometown is here in Lancaster. And she did a series of workshops. And so I took those, and she decided we were going to have a reading. And then we drew names to see in what order, and I had to come after her. And so not only is this the first time I'm reading in public, I'm reading after this woman who was the North Carolina Poet Laureate. So a little bit of nervous, but she was very, very gentle and very encouraging. So you just got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
The next
Hey,
question.
Laurie.
Laurie.
Yeah,
Would you like to speak to that, Laurie?
Malaprops, and yes, it's very scary, especially when you come to poetry very late in life. So, but it also is fun, you know, to have a challenge when you're in your late 50s and 60s. It's a great thing for the brain. It's important for the brain to do things outside of your reach and stretch. And so, yes, Sue, I can completely relate, but I think that's one reason we're here in life, is to explore.
Exactly.
Yeah. I actually was very surprised. I think it was at Malaprops. I can't really remember, but I liked it. And I thought, oh, this is the completion of the circle.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's not about me. It's about the message, the words that come through me bring. And seeing those words resonate with people was a gift. And that's what I mean when I say completion, and that's what carries me.
Mhm.
The next question is from DJ Gaskin. I don't know if we're related or not, DJ, but get in touch. We'll figure out if we're cousins. And she says especially hi to Kim. And the question is, how do each of you work to engage non-poet friends, maybe even those who profess not to like poetry, to give it a chance?
I'll answer. DJ, I have your book thanks to Kim. She sent it to me in Asheville, and I love your book. Thank you for that. You can be obnoxious around your friends, and then what that does to lead them into poetry. I think that if they want to, that they will. It just happens naturally. If someone's listening and open, and they will come naturally to poetry.
And I think too, if we do our part with our passion on the page, and we all are different poets, but if we're doing our part on the page, and there's one moment that we get to share something, and we bring then, especially to a reading, that enthusiasm. And as a high school teacher, I approach teaching poetry differently, just to get the enthusiasm out there. I had a lady stop me at school one day from the cafeteria, and she said, I read your book. And she said, and my daddy was on the page with your daddy. And I cried. And he's gone now. And I get it. And she says, I don't like poetry. So we bring passion, and that's how we get them there, I think.
Kim, do you want me to? I think I try to, or I like to meet people where they are. I enjoy writing really abstract things, but I also like to write about stock cars and bourbon and, fishing and such. And I've had, in reading Barracuda, which is a poem about me and a stock car, I've had guys come up to me after reading that and saying, I never liked poetry until so-and-so made me come to this. So I think really, I can only be myself and true to who I am. And some people will resonate with that who really wouldn't give poetry the time of day otherwise. So.
And I think anymore there is so much out there that how can there not be something that someone's going to be touched by or connect with? I think a lot of people still have that, and I know Sue was a great teacher, and so maybe not the same, but I think there was this, you have to look at poetry and you have to dissect it and you have to do all of this stuff. And I think if you can just sit and listen and have a variety of poetry, all of that academic dissecting and parceling it out is great, but sometimes you just need to sit and listen and hear it someplace else. And encourage them to look at a variety of different poets and go to open mics, those kinds of things, because you just never know. There's having it heard live, I think, makes a difference too. There's something about going to an open mic and hearing the words read by the poet and not just on the page, completely changes how the poems sound and look.
Thank you, everybody. This is from a question from Linda Riggins. Oh, and by the way, I'd be remiss if I didn't say South Carolina is also represented tonight. From Linda Riggins, and I'm a process person, and in my prose, I think about this kind of thing a lot, so I'm really interested in what the poets have to say. What punctuation is best to communicate a pause in a poem? What words could be used in a poem to show a mixture of joy, sadness, and grief at the same moment or seconds apart? I use a lot of ... or ellipses or ... M dashes, or I tab over. Any suggestions of words to use to help the reader take that deep belly breath?
Well, I'll start it with, as a poet, every single word has to count, okay? And I'm also a prose writer, so this carries over into prose. Those of you who are prose writers, start writing poetry. It's going to help you. But your best friend with that pause is your comma. And then my next best friend with that is the comma, and then maybe a stanza break. Just remember the old rules of grammar. You know, don't throw them out totally. A stop mark still means stop. And when you're a poet and you hit the stop mark, we stop. And when we hit the comma mark, we pause. And as you're editing and you're reading aloud, if it's not working for you in that way, then you go back and approach it. And then the other thing, and this is something that Joseph was really super, super helpful, and I've had some really good mentors along the way, and Joseph is one of those, is the enjambment. You know, that end word on that line, you know, if you're wanting your reader to pause with an end word and a comma to soak it all in and make that word count, especially when you move on down to the next line. Next.
That was so helpful. Thank you.
And the word thing, you know, I read the dictionary. I've got a dictionary stand in my living room, and I flip through and I write down words, write down 5 words a day. Every day, write down 5 words. Another wonderful person taught me that, besides loving words, but write down those words that roll off your tongue. I love the word forsythia. Forsythia is so beautiful.
Anyone else want to add? Okay. From Jan Potts. Hi, Jan. What poetry was read to you from an early age? Kim, you look like you're trying to remember.
Yeah, I am, because I don't think I wasn't read poetry other than like nursery rhymes and prayers. And I was thinking before we got here today was, when did I first start even noticing poetry? And it was in elementary school, but I was reading my mom's, she had a copy of like Leaves of Gold and Leaves of Silver, that anthology, and the Ideals magazines. The covers were always so gorgeous, and the poetry inside there, but I don't remember being read poetry to me. It was something I sort of picked up all through elementary school, and I did it on my own.
My parents did read poetry to me. I had an uncle who gave me, when I could read, books like From a Child's Garden of Verses on through Edgar Allan Poe's poetry. I mean, they read it. I didn't understand it all, but I liked it. And I guess some of it stayed within. There's some wonderful classic authors of poetry for kids.
I didn't have poetry as a child. Whatever we got in school, my parents were very, very limited with educational opportunities, very, very smart. And so we read to them a lot. And one of the things that was read to them by us was Shakespeare. And so when I was in high school, and I say this with all kindness and love, oh, Lady Phillips, and I got that feeling again when I was old and teaching, but she was standing in senior Shakespeare class, and she would quote either lines from Shakespeare or lines from his poetry. And this woman was incredible, you know, to hear these beautiful old English words spoken to me. So it wasn't until I was a senior in high school when I really began to understand and hear and appreciate and know. And then I started looking out on my own, trying to find poets.
The next question comes from Milagros Guzman. What advice can you give for someone to find a writing community in North Carolina and how to get your writing out in the world? And someone else comments right away, the North Carolina Poetry Society, ncpoetrysociety.org. So that's one response, but from your personal experience, the four of you, how do you find and forge the community that you found, that you have together?
God's grace.
I'm lucky to live in Asheville, so there's no question about not being able to find poets and places to go to readings, and it's just everywhere. So I feel very fortunate to be in Asheville and the surrounding area. Very easy.
Laurie, if you go to a reading and you hear someone, maybe you don't know that person, but you feel some connection to them from their work, how would you approach them?
I don't know if I don't have enough experience to know if poets are just wonderful people, but every single one I've met has been gracious and open and nurturing and helpful in many different ways. So I don't know, these other people might be able to answer if, is there a bad poet out there?
I think finding and nurturing a writing community is the most difficult thing that we do as writers. Writing is a lonely place. I mean, we do our best work when we're alone. And especially for me, I've been lucky. I have this group of wonderful people in your mountains of Carolina, Western Carolina, and then with Kim on over a piece in South Carolina. And then I'm over in East Tennessee, and we have the Tennessee Mountain Writers group. And of that group, we have a core group of poets we've worked with. In fact, one is listening right now, Vicki Brumback. And so, but writing communities can be kind of scary. You're opening up your heart, you're opening up your words, and we need not only nourishment and nurturing, but we also need complete honesty with feedback if that's what we want. I mean, you can go find a writing community that's not going to give you that and make you, praise. But Betty, I've got 3 sister poets here, and we nurture, we nourish each other's souls, but we also provide tremendous feedback. But go out there, go to readings, be present when we can again. And also the question said, get your work out there. Poets and writers, Look at, pick up your favorite, book of poetry and see where these people are sending their work. And then Denton Loving has a wonderful blog. And each month, he's a poet with Main Street Rag. His first book was from there, but he lives in Cumberland Gap. And every month he posts on his blog all submissions that are happening in the month for poets. So Denton Loving is a good place.
Mm-hmm. I would second Sue in terms of going to readings. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at Joan Beresovska and Flyleaf Books and my friend Barbara Kenyon and our compatriot Jerry, who I don't know if is on this or not, but you, in my experience, you kind of collect a tribe, you collect a community, and not everyone in that community gets really close to you or close to your heart. I feel so blessed to have these three women, my poet sisters, with me. But there are other people who were very different in terms of poetry, and I think that's important as well, to expose yourself. Just get out there, just do it. I agree with Laurie. I mean, poets, I think we're a giving group of people, because you have to love being a poet, because
You don't make any money.
yeah, that's right.
And you better love rejection letters.
That's right.
There's one more question that could be yes or no. So since we're going to need to move on to our last round of readings shortly, I'll ask what could be a yes/no question. And I'm sorry, I've lost it in the thread, so I'm not sure who to attribute this to, and I apologize to that person. Do all of you identify as introverts?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a blend of both.
And I'm an introvert, and I work hard, and the teacher personality has to take over sometimes.
Wonderful questions, and I want all the poets to know you haven't really, I don't think, had a chance to look at the comments as you've been reading and talking, but you are getting a great deal of thanks, a lot of gratitude being expressed in the comments section, a lot of appreciation for you and your talent and what you've brought to us tonight. So one more round of readings, please.
And this is the round Dee's going to start with, and this is our close and our gift to you as we say goodnight.
First, bones. We have to search for the bones. They will not be bleaching peacefully in the sun. Clear away crop stubble, smooth the ground. Kneel and dig crust old dirt under new fingernails. Scrape away layer after layer. Bury your hands deep into this field and feel. Their bones are within your grasp. Dig furiously. Go until you lose sight of yourself. Dig until you cannot see who you are, but only who they are to you. Do not stop until you found the first bone and then the next and next. They are all connected. Spirit wrapped in a quilt of memory, tangible wholeness waiting. There are no fallow fields, not in this land. There's still life here. Buried bones make it so. Search and feel to remember how to speak to them. Greet their bones and then listen, for they will respond in searing sun, winter wind, bird song, and night owls. Their wisdom is ours to remember, honor, and love.
Spring equinox. I walk in neighborhood woods, in wilderness. Whether peace blooms or not, I walk. My body asked me to stop, but I walk. I walk for wings you sent me lifetimes ago, the ones of perfect dreams and perfect sleep. Fantastical feathers I do not wear, my cup empty. Water gushes out from an ancient spring. I see glowing moss, lichened stones set upright in a circle. They point in 7 directions. Your work wraps round me. When and where and what and why disappear through a hole near the base of one stone. Rhododendrons whisper, a sacred secret. 2 garter snakes side by side. The sun. 2 red tongues dance in air.
Release. In April, we celebrated 9 years off therapy. Dr. Kevin said no more annual visits unless you want them. The last needle I watch pierce your skin is for a belly button ring, our gift on your 18th birthday. Goldilocks curls lost and regrown twice. You iron into silk that frames your creamy complexion. Your blue-gray eyes shimmer when you smile. Shedding a victim's body, you clothe yourself in your survivor's skin. The beauty mark next to your mouth, a seal on the threshold for intubating tubes. The button above your heart closes the opening left from a portacath. A zipper on your abdomen covers the entrance to our weeks in PICU. Remnants of scars you refuse to hide. My cancer was a gift, formed who I am. I would never change a thing. Today at the airport, you hold 1 suitcase and 1 backpack. All you're allowed this year to spread God's word and share your faith. I stand, wait for the camera focused on your wave goodbye, but you never look back.
On behalf of the Poet Sisters, you all have filled our hearts with joy. We love sharing what we do with other people. Thank you, Hannah, for pulling all this together, and thank you, Nora, for agreeing to moderate. And Joseph, we love you so much.
Yeah.
Ken, I stand beyond sound, cleave unto the spirit of words on this page. Welcome home, Ken, to this old mountain holler. Jagged rocks take on smooth sides, rain and snow weathered, warmed by spring winds, summer sun. We sit in the silent circle, hold fast homecoming, our arms reaching across time. Fingertips hold the caress of the women we know formed us, loved us. Paths mark us with comfortable wear, like our skin. Our faces hold our story along, our history together, a pilgrimage of faith in sisters, in a good greater than one woman standing alone. Hands locked, we walk forward, purpose sure. Our journey meanders, steadfast to sunrise, sunset today.
Lots of virtual applause here. So now it should be time for everybody to have something to eat and a drink and lots of hugs and talk about poetry till midnight. And we'll do that virtually until we can all do it in person. And maybe we can get everybody from Ohio and Tennessee and South Carolina and Florida and Kentucky and get everybody all together one of these fine days. So thank you everybody for attending. Thanks again to the library. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, poets. This was a wonderful evening. Everybody be safe and be well.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.